Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed had some technical difficulties this morning, or not this morning, about 15 minutes ago, that caused chaos and caused me to come to my iPad in the living room, or actually in the kitchen. So we're going to try this, but I know it's a little bit brighter than normal.
Yeah, no, I mean, technical difficulties, elemental difficulties, because we're doing this a day later. Me on the East Coast with the hurricane, or what are they calling it now, a tropical cyclone Debbie that's passing through my region of the country. Power issues and everything yesterday, and we didn't want to risk. It's funny, we didn't want to risk having a chopped up podcast, and then there's in sunny California. Matt's got ghosts in his house.
I don't know. I think my computer might be dead, so might be starting over there. But yeah, postponing it a day though turns out, other than for my computer and my pocketbook possibly, turned out to be good for our conversation. So why don't you tell the listeners some of the breaking news from earlier today?
Yeah, I mean, obviously by now folks have seen the news, the return of the baddest man on the planet as far as mixed martial arts is concerned. Heavyweight champ Francis Ngannou is coming back to mixed martial arts, which kind of just made me do one of these because, we were kind of like, you and I were kind of pretty open about him never coming back to MMA if his boxing experiment was being successful. And then obviously if that wasn't successful and he had some personal issues in his life. So I figured, I mean, how do you come back from stuff like that? And I just kind of, left it where it was at. And then today, as a workday started here, early East Coast time in the morning, PFL puts out a press release that they're going to do a super fight October 19th. Francis Ngannou versus Renan Ferreira, who's been patiently waiting for this fight for, since this whole PFL Bellator merger happened. And, because he did knock out Ryan Bader when they had that pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. And then on top of that fight, the co-main event, that's the main event. And the co-main event is going to be Chris Cyborg and Larissa Pacheco, who also seem to have been very public and patient, waiting for something to happen with them as the PFL moves forward with their PFL MENA and their regular season and all the other things that they're doing. So it looks like we're going to finally get some significant marquee fights out of them. And then I don't know if many people know this, but there's going to be a press conference soon. I think towards the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, it's on the 22nd in Washington, D.C., with Jake Paul hosting the press conference between these four fighters, these champions. So, I mean, it's about time. It's about time. Not for nothing. It's about time.
No, I agree. I'm excited for Cyborg to get back. That fight with Pacheco is great. One that we've been wanting, and it's been in the realm of possibilities for quite a while now. So it's nice to see that finally going off. It's finally nice to see Cyborg and Larissa get a fight signed. They were kind of held into limbo. Clearly, they were held into limbo to get it on this pay-per-view card. Mm-hmm. Imagine I believe it's going to be in Saudi Arabia, right?
That's so that's the thing. There's no location given. It's TBA. My assumption is that, because that's what I've been saying. We've been saying on this podcast since they've gotten in business with Turkey Al Sheikh. Hopefully I'm saying his name right, because I always just call him Turkey. But I feel like just because of the timing, October 19th, Riyadh season officially begins October 11th. So October 19th, and I always kept saying if they're going to do it, it's going to be in October because of Riyadh season. But the only reason I'm pulling back a little bit on that, I still think it's going to be Saudi Arabia, but the only reason I'm thinking it might not be is because I also feel like the fact that they're in DC with this arena or stadium that because PFL likes doing stuff in DC. I was there for a 4th of July season. I forget what season that was. I want to say 2018 maybe. I don't know if it's because they have one of their properties there or what the deal is, because they seem to be all over the place. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do it in DC as well. But I just the timing, the October month, and the fact that it's Ngannou and Ferreira, who like if you remember Ngannou's deal, whoever he fights in MMA is also guaranteed a minimum of $1 million just for participation for this Super PFL Super Champions title. I forget what it was. I know I quoted it in something I wrote earlier, but yeah. So just because of the money that they want behind it, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Saudi Arabia. But officially, they haven't said anything yet. I'm assuming we're going to get those details when they do that press conference in DC.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Saudi Arabia. I just question PFL's ability to sell tickets in the United States.
Mm.
I don't. They have no record of ever really doing it. Bellator's got a San Diego event in September, month away at this point, and it doesn't look like I mean, there's no promotion. There's no. I would say the ticket sales are fairly weak compared to what Bellator used to do, but it doesn't seem like a lot's going into it. There's no history of them having more than a handful of people in the crowd, and I don't know if you would put that fight. I mean, you can't really risk having that fight in a semi-empty arena.
Mm-hmm.
It's Ngannou. I don't know if he's a draw outside of the UFC. Cyborg has proven to be a draw wherever she's at, but she's not in California. I feel like Southern California, her home base. That's where she always drew well, through Invicta, through Bellator, heck, UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Had her fight in Anaheim. So I feel like that's kind of. I mean, the event may very well be in LA. I mean, the more I think about it, that even starts to make a little bit more sense. If you're going to try to use ESPN, if you're going to try to, if you're going to get any kind of promotion out of this, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, you can have Jake Paul, doing a press conference, but the reality is he's not selling a ton of pay-per-views for his events either. Those numbers are coming back pretty paltry. I mean, he's making money through probably a bunch of other avenues,
like
through ads and
sponsorships
stuff
and
like
stuff.
that,
Yeah.
sponsorships. But it's not like they're selling hundreds of thousands of pay-per-views. So I wonder, not that, let's put it this way. In Saudi Arabia, the arena will be filled. Whether it's people buying tickets, giving tickets, or maybe kind of pushed in the door, I think it would be filled. And I think that they would have the look that they want for the spectacle that I think that this fight and the whole thing kind of deserves. I mean, that's what they are, right? Like, we're kind of at that point. Like, Ngannou this might be his only fight in PFL, so make him look like Godzilla. You know what I mean? Like, let's do it up. Let's, we don't need the 45 national anthems and all that other stuff that goes along with some of that circus stuff. But some of the stuff that boxing does for their interests and stuff, I think pays off when you're doing an event where you've got Cyborg on the card and you got Ngannou.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with Cyborg. I mean, now I wouldn't be surprised if that was October 19th on a Saturday. I wouldn't be surprised if they do try to do something in your neck of the woods. You said something just before that made me think too about because you're talking about ticket sales and stuff like that. It just made me think about the financial side of things. And I just shared a bunch of tweets. Turkey Al Sheikh, he's being pretty public about his boxing dealings, especially the stuff that went down with Canelo and the Crawford card and stuff like that. So, I mean, again, we're talking Saudi Arabia money. So maybe he just doesn't want to spend any more money on MMA, wants to focus on boxing, or if he cares about money at all. I mean, when you have money like that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I know he's got so much money. Maybe it doesn't matter to him, but maybe because of all the boxing shenanigans, he's probably like, hey, maybe even though it doesn't hurt me, maybe let's not lose so much money on marketing this in Saudi Arabia and let the PFL just do whatever. So I don't know.
I don't know. They liked Ngannou for boxing over there.
Mm-hmm.
They did have the PFL Bellator event over there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing that to me it's got to either be there or it's essentially got to be in Los Angeles, because I don't really see where else. I mean, or you just not, or it's just already paid for, and you're just. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're just running these guys' contracts out. I don't know. Maybe it's Pacheco and Cyborg. I don't know what I can't get a read off the PFL
because I can't see them. Yeah, it's hard, and it's because it's hard to know who to listen to there. I mean, when you saw the Fighters Only Awards, when they listed their nominees for promotional frontmen, you had all these faces of people who exactly who they are, and the PFL listed Peter Murray, but the guy that does all the talking is Don Davis. So it's like it is hard to figure out who the hell's actually doing what. And then when they talk about fighter contracts and stuff, I mean, at events, Ray Seffel's the guy to talk to because he's the one letting us all know that the PFL's not interested in Muhammad Mokayev. So stuff like that it is hard to figure out.
Well, I can't
You
figure
want to know if
out
they
like
talk to each other. Yeah.
yeah, I mean there's that too, but like okay, so we've all seen the coming and goings of MMA organizations.
Mhm.
If you're not selling tickets, if you're not selling pay-per-views and you're only getting a couple 100,000 at best views on
Mhm.
ESPN, how the hell are you making money? How are you paying these fighters? How are you paying Ngannou? How are you paying Chris Cyborg? How are you paying anybody? You know what I mean? Like, I get investors, but there's got to be some kind of return, and I can't
Yeah.
see for the life of me where they're drawing any kind of income.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, not at least not the normal ways. Maybe they're doing it through Bitcoin or crypto, or maybe you know what
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not joking. Like maybe there's a new avenue for money to come into places other than ticket sales, pay per view, and TV ratings. Because I just don't see it with them. I mean, their ratings have always almost been worse than Bellator. So I don't even like it's hard to go. Well, this is the new number 2 in town when you're like, I haven't been able to buy into it, which
Mm.
is why I missed the event last weekend. I chose to watch, some other
Yeah.
stuff, other fights, but um, and the truth is, I really don't even know half of these time they're not coming on because there is no other than you getting a press release, like it's pretty, you might catch the 3 retweets about an event, like
Yeah.
it's not like they're getting tens of thousands of retweets. It's not like, I mean, you give Dana White all you can give him as much crap as you want. When the UFC has something to announce, Dana White's on Instagram, he's on ESPN,
Yeah.
he's on every outlet in the world to let you know what the word is. I mean, you know, had I been a normal human being and only been on Twitter for an hour today, I wouldn't have even known about the Ngannou thing. Probably, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know. But with that said, I think they're two good fight. Then that the Pacheco Cyborg fight to me is a women's super fight. That fight is
Yeah.
outstanding. Um, Maybe one of the best women's potential super fights ever. And I mean, the list isn't tremendously long, but I think that one probably fits well into that category. Um,
Yeah, I'm a little bothered by the press release that announced it. I shared the image on social today. I mean, it'll be the image for the podcast. Um, but it just had Ngannou and Heda facing each other, and I'm like, that's these ladies fighting is it's not nothing to undersell. I just found the how old is this post? I just shared the post before we started recording while you were dealing with your stuff over there. This is from 5 hours ago. So from five hours versus the 11 hours ago when they announced 10, 11 hours. So they 5 hours at least passed before they started pushing the Pacheco and Cyborg promotional stuff on their social handles. And if you notice, there's a familiar tweet that they used. If you haven't seen it, but let me bring it up. But did they put an image? I'm not gonna bring it up. But there's not like a like you should have included these two ladies. I don't want to get the sound thing, but there's a lot of highlights of both of their fights and stuff, but they didn't like put them in the poster, so to speak. So it's like why did you make this announcement and not put them in the poster? It's kind of I don't know, it's kind of messed up to me. Hopefully they fix that between now and when they have their press conference. I'm sure at the press conference, I mean, there's a reason why Jake Paul's probably hosting it versus Don Davis or whoever, because there's probably some words to be had from both ladies with those guys as far as waiting so long to book. I mean, Cyborg's taking boxing fights because she's like, you sit too long. That's one thing I worry about Fajeda and Pacheco. It's like they've been sidelined for almost a whole year because of these dealings. So I don't know, but
And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous that there is no venue.
hmm.
Like usually, again,
Yeah.
usually you don't announce a
Uh-huh.
event without a location. So I don't know. Slow week in fights. Maybe you're just trying to get your name in the news. I don't know, but
Yeah, no,
if
you're right because I actually when the press release came out, I wanted to make sure I was reading it right before I posted my guess about the Saudi Arabia thing because I was just like, wait a minute, because usually the things are accompanied by Matt versus Ed in fucking Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Like you'll
mhm.
know where you have the fight, the bouts, and the location. We just got fight and bouts, so yeah, that's
And
it's
it seems like
it's a
if it was
little
going to be
weird.
Saudi Arabia, it definitely would have already been announced. Like I don't know why
Mhm.
that would have been held up.
Mm.
Maybe getting an arena secured in the U.S. is a little bit, more, or they just figure we'll get something. And again, we're talking October, so what are we? August? I mean, we're what 2 months away?
Yeah, it's really
Like,
close.
like maybe if you're going to try to sell 20,000 tickets, you might have to get a venue. Like I don't know, or we're going to do this in a tent somewhere. Like I'm okay
Hey,
with
you,
either
you know where's
one,
a good?
but
I'll tell you what. If they want a venue that's not that crazy. Like it's not Madison Square Garden in the arena, but like a good sized venue that I think is good for fights and stuff would be because they have the Bellator people on board. They could use Mohegan Sun Arena. Like that's a decent sized arena. For a lot of significant fights have happened there. And you could it's sizable enough that you could pack it to make it look like the thing that you're trying to make it look like. So maybe that's what's coming. That's an option, but
you know what
who
I'd like to see? I'd like to hear that this is a holdup because the UFC is trying to stop them from getting into Vegas, and they're going to do it at the MGM Grand.
knows? That considering all the dirt Dana White spilling, well, not spilling, but
I mean,
him and it,
like
yeah.
there's a couple places you could do it there. The Mandalay Bay events. I mean, you could go back to the kind of the
Mm,
old UFC roots. You'd have a 12,000 seat. When you put the stage there, you knock it down to like 8,000. You start talking possibilities
mm-hmm,
there, and you kind of can knock on the door a little bit. You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm,
and and you're not a threat. You've already had events at Mandalay Bay, right? They've already been there. Now that I think about it, it's like getting to Vegas isn't so much the issue. It would just
mm-hmm.
be securing a weekend. So, I mean, it wouldn't even be surprised if we end up hearing that this moves to the 24th or this moves to the November, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I feel like there's some fluidity to it if we don't even have a venue yet.
yeah,
But good fights. Happy to see it announced. Some good
yeah.
news in the combat world there.
And just before we leave the PFL, and good news in the combat world, we're worth piggybacking off of, that they're in their playoff seasons now. They had their event in Nashville, and Dakota I always mess up Divichov, the woman that's that won the hold on, I want to pronounce her name right. Dakota Ditcheva, who won her round of the playoffs. She defeated Jenna Bishop, first round TKO. So she moves on ahead to face Tyla Santos for the championships in her division. Um, and I think that's her case with the PFL. There is something you can say about the PFL. You look at everybody knows who Kayla Harrison is because of her run in the PFL, and I think this woman has, because of her finishes, the way she's been performing, the fact that especially this last fight. If you didn't see it, I suggest you watch it because this was the fight that was supposed to expose her as not as being one dimensional. And not only did she defend, I mean, she got taken down, yes, but she got back up. Her working her guard off of her back and able to frame away, get to the cage and get back up, and then knock out the woman after she got back up is something to behold. I feel like if there is star making happening in the PFL, they can definitely do it with their women's divisions. They did it with Kayla Harrison, and they're doing it with Dakota Ditcheva. So if you haven't watched the whole season, she's going to be the fight. I would say that's a fight to look forward to her. to her and Tyler Santos.
No, that'll definitely be a good fight, and it should be a main event fight if we're being honest about. Her last fight probably should have been the main event fight as well.
Yeah, it was, yeah, it
with
was
Jenna
the co-main,
Bishop.
but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but again, PFL again, that's one of the things that's a problem for them. We can act like it's all one big card. You got to have a main card. You got to have your best fights on the main card because that you can't expect the average person to tune in for 6 hours. Like if we're wanting to get viewers and stuff like that, that's what I think that time has to change.
Well, they definitely need to change their pacing because everyone keeps on complaining about the pacing and they don't do anything about it. And even people are posting what's happening, whether it be ESPN Plus or regular ESPN. The pacing seems to be their biggest issue. It was the last couple of seasons. Having been in their events live in house and covering them, I don't feel that, but I'm working, like I'm doing something. So those gaps in between fights, it gives me time to type and do my stuff, and then I look up and another fight's happening. So it doesn't feel like that when I'm there, but when I'm sitting home and watching it, I definitely am like, what are we doing here? I don't need to see 800 Celsius energy drink commercials. So, but yeah,
I'm with you. That's definitely an issue too, but I don't know. They got some good fights coming up. We'll see what they do. We'll see how the Bellator show goes. That's a fairly nice fight card as well, with Aaron Jeffrey and Douglas Lima. One of the bright ones on that card. But we'll talk about that in a few weeks. It's actually the weekend. I will be in Colorado for one, so we'll probably have a week double show and talk about that and the one card when that one comes around. Some other things from this past weekend, BKFC held BKFC 63 at Sturgis, South Dakota. They're reporting the biggest crowd they've ever had, 15,500.
Which seems right. Like that just seems like all that.
It seems fine, Like I don't know if you remember the old WCW that they used to have at Sturgis. I don't remember what it's called. It was like Dennis Rodman and Jay Leno and all that. I think if I'm remembering right, but it had that, like it was.
What was the name of the Brian Bosworth action movie with the motorcycle gang? I can't think of it, but
Ice Cold.
Something, or Stone Cold or Ice Cold, something like that.
Stone Cold, Ice Cold, something like that.
Yeah, but that's the vibe I got out of that. And I was just like, even Connor, when he was at the Sturgis whatever thing that they caught him with the little chick dancing in front of him, he was wearing like the leather vest, and I was just like, this all feels right. Bare knuckle and all that just feels right.
Yeah, it does feel right, and it was a wildly, typical violent card. Britain Hart retained her title in the main event in a 5-round decision over Taylor Starling. Good fight. Britain Hart, been around forever. Always puts on a good fight. Now multiple-time defending champion. Sam Shoemaker in the co-main event picked up a revenge win over Josh Burns. This was a decision. Prior to that, they fought 4 or 5 years ago. Josh Burns actually knocked out Shoemaker in about 20 seconds, stood over and mocked him. So it was a little bit of revenge there, but BKFC just keeps rolling on, man. I don't know what kind of paid crowd you get out of that. I think that's more of probably like, let's just have a giant crowd. I don't know if these people are necessarily forking over money. I think it's just kind of, let's just come, enjoy the atmosphere. Let's kind of have a spectacle. And again, using that word, and fun to watch, good fights, brutal knockouts, nasty cuts, everything you'd want in a BKFC event. They continue just to build and build. I don't know where Mike Perry's situation is right now. That'll be interesting to see. Will be interesting to see if they can create another star kind of in his place if he decides to redo MMA or get into his own.
I wonder if they're going to do any, because I remember Feldman was big on like kind of trying to push. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. The Mexican fighter that did well. Yeah. Like, I wonder if they're going to do anything in September, like to kind of like piggyback all the Mexican combative sports culture, because obviously the boxing is doing their thing, UFC is doing their thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Feldman pulls something out of his hat and does something with Angulo if he can. But the again, like whatever they do, BKFC is and Feldman as he's a man after my own heart. Reminds me of Scott Coker. He just doesn't give a fuck about anybody else. Does his own thing. Keeps putting on shows and putting on good fights. So they're definitely in it for the long haul. 63 events plus their what do they call their contender series thing? I always forget.
The
Prospects, right? Is it
prospect
prospects?
series.
Yeah,
Prospect series. There you go.
prospect
Yeah,
series.
yeah. I mean, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
just avoiding any bad luck, avoiding any kind of tragic situation like they ran into a couple years ago. Again, the more fights you see, the more you realize something like that is just kind of more of a fluke, and
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing you can really control.
Yeah.
But everything they're doing is great, man. I look forward to them. I just can't every event. I hope it's in my neck of the woods. Every single time they announce something now, I hope it's something I can get to. So I hope they continue
Yeah.
with that.
I mean, and I hope they do at least some more media stuff, at least in my neck of the woods, because they did the Lobov Malinaji thing out here, and I was able to get to that and talk to Feldman, and all those videos are on the YouTube channel. I put it on this YouTube channel. That's already a few years ago, but when I remember when I asked him, I was like, "You think BKFC will come to New York?" I mean, everybody was kind of like, look how long it took for MMA to get here. Granted, there was politics and underhanded scheming stuff involved, but there is definitely, when you look at the athletic commission, the New York State Athletic Commission, and how they kind of protect everything, that I wouldn't be surprised if they're last for BKFC or bare knuckle boxing as other states open it up. Um, One other event that went on Prime Video, talking about Colorado and one championship, they had one fight night. Was it 160? One fight night 24. Sorry. Jared the Monkey God Brooks, he won the interim strawweight title with a crazy submission, first round submission against Gustavo Ballard, and it's just it was almost it was, I don't want to say it was a tearjerker, but it was definitely to see his emotion winning that fight, because it was one that folks, I guess, weren't expecting him to win. It's the interim title, so he'll be facing Joshua Patio for the undisputed title at some point soon. Maybe he'll get lucky and it'll be on Colorado or the November card, the two cards that are here in the States. But that happened, and then the other title that kind of, I don't want to say upset me, but it made me sad. Danielle Kelly lost her submission grappling world title, atomweight title, to Maisa Bastos by decision. Um, I want to say I don't disagree, only because as Kelly definitely tried to be the aggressor, but it's hard to be the aggressor when the person you're against is also attacking as often as Bastos was from the bottom. Um, Especially when you have to like when you get into leg entanglement jiu-jitsu, there's levels to levels to levels, and like that there's a reason why you can see guys blue belt level guys that are really good at leg locks submitting black belt level guys in on other grappling shows, because it's just it's almost like the conversation I've had with we had him on the podcast, Ron Rivers, who's Matt Serra black belt. He and I have had the conversation, where it's like the whole leg lock game. It's almost like another martial art that you have to learn if you're not that versed in it. So she didn't get tapped. She defended everything well, but that's why the decision kind of went to Bastos, because she just kept on getting underneath her, starting leg entanglements. I think she got one or two catches. If you rewatch it, it's on Prime Video, so if you haven't checked it out, you can check it out for yourself. Um, Based on her social media posts, I wouldn't be surprised if that rematch gets booked right away. The good thing about grappling super fights is if it goes to a decision, no one's that hurt, you can book it fairly soon. So maybe they can let Miss Kelly fight in her neck of the woods instead of flying all the way to Singapore or Thailand or wherever the hell one championship like to hold 90% of their events. So, but yeah, I mean, if you didn't watch it, it was a fun card.
Yeah, I didn't catch it, but Bastos is a really good grappler. She
Yeah.
competed at an EBI that I covered years ago. Um, To me, it's a good sign. If I'm being honest, Daniel Kelly's been the champion there, kind of been a face of that
Mhm.
women's division in that grappling division for a little while there and won. I think it's a good sign. I don't see the grappling like, to me, like if you've got world class grapplers, like nobody should be like sweeping the field. Like
Mhm.
it's just, to me, it's not the nature of submission grappling, because if you're winning all the matches, to me, you're being kind of conservative. Like at least that's my perspective as
Mhm.
somebody who watches it, not so much as somebody like you. But I think it's a good sign. I like when grapplers can beat each other. Every once in a while, it's nice to have a Gordon Ryan or something who makes a run. You're like, this guy's
Mhm.
incredible. But when you got championship belts and that kind of thing, to me, all it does is help create rivalries, and it creates build a division, because you can see like the Ronda Rousey effect, in a sense, where once she left, it kind of got weak, and then it took Nunes, and then Nunes left, and we're kind of back here again. So, um, I mean, we are,
I know
and
you don't mean to be funny, but it
no,
came
but
out. It made me laugh.
but so I like to see it, especially when it's a name grappler who it's like, okay, well, this is not some random person from Malaysia or,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is somebody who's well awarded, and has the receipts to show that she deserves to be there. So I don't I a decision loss in grappling, to me, you shake it off, you go again. To me, your grappling record should be like 300, 112, and
Mhm.
48. You know what I mean? Like
Hicks and
that's
Gracie numbers. Yeah.
well, Hicksock Racing was 400. But like I feel like if you're in a pool with sharks, you're gonna get bit occasionally, and that's how it should be. Like if it's a bunch of minnows and you're defeating everyone, then what is it? What is it? It's the same like if you're a Muay Thai champion in the U.S. Like you kind of got to go abroad to really compete in
Yeah.
one, and compete in Lumpian Field Stadium and all that stuff. And excuse me. But so I don't see it as a big deal. No one, like you said, no one was hurt. You could have the rematch tomorrow if they wanted to. You know what I mean? Like it's what you guys do every single day in the gym. Um, so train, set up a rematch. They got the event in Atlanta. I know they only have one or two fights for that. Sounds like that would be a good place to maybe slide that fight into if you want to. If you want to do a rematch in the States, and I'm not sure where Bastos trains out of, but I imagine it's a lot closer to Atlanta than than Thailand or Bangkok.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel like that rematch. I wouldn't be surprised if one tries to add that or throw that into one of the American cards. Um, and I think we talked about everything we wanted to talk about, right? Oh, I mean, I did want to touch on. I mean, some of the UFC stuff. A lot is being made of the the comment that Dana White made. I wrote an article about the whole heavyweight division picture. I think you have to take in context the whole thing, because everybody seems to be knocking him, saying that about Aspinall not deserving. But please watch that whole interview and listen to the entire context of what he said, because he's talking about in the grand scope within the UFC of somebody that's been in the company and help build the company, including Jones and Miocic. I think people are having a knee jerk reaction, and of course it's nice to share the clips of just the shit you want to set people off. So that's that interview. UFC friendly Kevin Isle, he said a lot of things in that interview that I was kind of like, of course you said it to him, but
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for it. Probably won't listen to that one, but but I'll take your word for it. And I'm glad that you said that, because I
mhm.
had just seen the clip
Mhm.
as well. So I mean, that kind of, listen. I don't understand why John Jones has to have the belt. That's my thing with that situation, is I genuinely don't understand why it just can't be a super fight of legends, and you let Aspinall do his thing.
Mhm.
You're supposed to have rankings. You're supposed to not be ranked if you don't fight over a certain period of time. All this stuff was supposed to be settled a couple years ago,
Yeah, it's in
in
writing, but nobody's following the rules. Yeah.
but nobody follows the rules. And so with that said, there are no rules. So that's fine. I just don't understand why you're downplaying Aspinall. And maybe he didn't in the total interview. I just don't see why you're not
No.
like pushing his momentum.
Yeah.
All Dana White has to come out and say is Aspinall's the new kid on the block. Jones needs to figure out how he's going to beat Miocic, and then he better not get his ass kicked by the new kid. Like, that's how he should be selling it, but not.
I mean, that's kind of what he did say. If you will watch the entire, it's funny because so if you guys the piece I wrote on it at My MMA News, it had I transcribed everything he said for folks to, because when he put it out, when he laid it out completely the way that he said it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But they only said, because Dana White likes to cut people off, so that's the clip that you're getting of him saying, Aspinall doesn't deserve anything. He added more to that, but he didn't mean it to demean Aspinall, because he didn't want to take away from what Miocic and Jones have done. And then he closed it by saying that John Jones, or whoever wins the Miocic Jones fights, owes it to Aspinall for legacy to face Aspinall. So he didn't take it away from him
now
completely.
that's better, but
yeah,
here's the reality: if Miocic wins, he's not fighting Aspinall. If Jones wins, would you bet any amount of money that he actually fights Aspinall? So with that said, I feel like it creates the paper champion. All you're doing is downgrading Aspinall, because if Jones wins and it's a double retirement fight, like is fairly rumored to happen, then you've just made Aspinall a paper champion for all time and eternity. Jones retires with the heavyweight belt that he defended against a guy who hasn't fought in 5 years. After winning a fight for his first fight in 3 years, he's fought twice in whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you just, to me, you downgrade it. I just don't see why there has to be a title on the line in that fight. Listen, Miocic doesn't deserve a title shot. I mean, I don't. It doesn't make sense. It's not right in a sporting way. It should just be a Legends super fight, and I don't understand why that can't headline over a title fight, or you know what I mean?
That's one thing. The one thing, and you and I blew the face about, the UFC doesn't like to try many new things off of the script that they've written, because we're the worldwide leader and blah blah blah. They don't want to do anything that PFL and Bellator and all. They don't want to do those things because I've in their eyes, I guess it makes them seem like biters or whatever. But you're the front runner. If you do it, no one's gonna care that the other guys did it. If you do something unique, like you said, like make it a Legends bout, you fucking pull the BMF title out of your asshole.
There you go. Like, those guys didn't have to have the title to fight each other. They just fought, and they made a friggin' belt up. I don't care if you call it the Legends belt. Bring back the super fight title.
Yeah.
Like,
ultimate.
Whatever you want to call it. I just don't. It doesn't seem necessary to me, and it seems like you're going to diminish Aspinall when he eventually gets handed the real heavyweight title. Yeah. And maybe that won't matter in the long run. It just doesn't seem like the UFC really wants to have faces. Listen, Bilal Muhammad just pulled off a great upset.
Yeah.
Over a guy a lot of people were starting to write down as an all-time great. And unless I missed it, has he been on ESPN? Has he, like, why is he not booked on these sports shows? Why is he not?
He was only on last weekend. He was only on their internet ESPN MMA YouTube channel. There was an interview with him, but you are right.
Like, I don't understand why he wasn't on Sports Center. I don't understand, and this is not just him. This is a lot of people. Like, I don't understand there was more visual.
So CM Punk gave him a bigger shout out.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. He did. He did on what was it, Raw on Monday night? He gave a big shout out. It seems weird that, like, I saw fighters more like on Jim Rome's show and stuff. Like, it feels like they're just not around anymore. Like, how is it? It seems weird to me that I should be able to watch an entire week of Sports Center and there not be a single UFC highlight when there's a UFC event every single week.
That's why I feel that's why I always say the Fox Sports era was better. They put so much. They had shows around. The fighters were always on everything. I mean, Shannon Sharp and the other guy that they hate now, the Nesbitt dude, I forget his name, but like they had all these shows that fighters were heavily featured on, and I do agree. I mean, who knows? Maybe it has something to do with the contract being up soon, and them shopping around. because Dana White talked about that like 2 weeks ago on one of the regular news channels. They might be in a few places based on what he said. So, and it might not those places might not be ESPN. So,
Yeah, and again, maybe TV views is no longer a big deal. Maybe going on YouTube's better. Maybe going to some streamers stream is better than being interviewed by ESPN, Sports Center. I don't know, but it seems it. I get you might be building the young crowd, which is what you want to do, but it seems like you're kind of turning off some of the older crowd. I mean, we've already talked about that with the whole ESPN Plus, the multiple steps to order a pay-per-view, the fact that you just can't have a television with cable and watch the fights anymore. Like, or a satellite. You can't have a TV with direct TV and watch the UFC anymore. So you can't watch any UFC unless it's the once every 6 weeks or something on ESPN. Seems weird to me, but again, they're more rich than they've ever been, so they're doing something right. It seems like it has. I don't know. They know what they're doing, but with that said, I think I kind of got it all out this week.
But before you take us out, one last thing, I got to share this because I get proud of this kid every time. World MMA Awards, the homie Nolan King is nominated for Journalist of the Year. He's up against a lot of faces that people like to fucking dick ride. But you'd be doing us a favor if you've been on the podcast a couple of times. He's a friend of mine. He's a fellow hophead. We like beer. We like pizza. East Coast. Make sure you log on to Fighters Only. Do your voting and vote for our boy Nolan King, because the kid is literally about his work. He's not about himself. He's about these fighters and the stuff he puts out. He never tries to puff up his own chest. So I'm gonna do it for him. So that's the only that's all I wanted to add before you took us out.
Nice, I agree. All the love and respect to Nolan King. So fans can check us out at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Edit Carbizol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good week, and see you next week.
Peace.